We're talking about Star Wars again here on This, That, and Theology. Stay tuned to see how Jedi Survivor can help you share your faith. You're watching This, That, and Theology, equipping you to use your worldview in the world around you. Just a quick word of warning, this is a video game review, and we will try to keep as many spoilers out of it as possible, but we are going to talk about worldview concepts that occur throughout the game. If you want a completely unblemished experience, which I wouldn't blame you for, it's a fantastic game, you may want to wait until you're a little further on in the story progression before watching this video. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is the sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, 2019's game that introduced us to Cal Kestis and his band of adventurers as Cal, who was a survivor of Order 66 as a Padawan, relearns how to use the Force in the seek of a Jedi artifact that contains the names of all the potential new Jedi in the galaxy. I won't spoil the story for that game at all, but I will tell you that throughout probably 25 hours of gameplay, you follow Cal as he not only becomes a Jedi Knight, but also grows closer with the team that he is surrounded by. Whether it's Seer, who was once a Jedi who had cut herself off from the Force, or Greasy, lovable, greasy spoon kind of a cook, or Marin, who you meet about halfway through, who follows a different Force path, not Jedi or Sith. This whole crew becomes a new family for Cal. So even though he has lost the Jedi Order, even though he lost his master, there is a new family there. This is important as you look at Jedi Survivor, because the relationships that Cal has forged in the first game provide the background for everything that Cal does in the future. Star Wars has always been about telling big epic stories that are actually focused on small intimate setting. The times when Star Wars shines the best is both when it tells swashbuckling, fantastical stories, but also deals with the intimacy of interpersonal relationships and how we relate to one another. It's not just that Darth Vader is this evil character in the Empire, he's a father who has turned his back on the light. Especially when it comes to Jedi and Force users, Star Wars has also been about the battle inside of us between good and evil. Yoda famously says in Empire Strikes Back that once you start down the dark side, forever will it dominate your destiny. This quote doesn't mean that you will always be on the dark side, but it does mean that if you start flirting, if you start giving in to the temptation of hate and anger and rage, those things will forever be a part of your life, and you'll always have to deal with them. I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. As you can tell, I'm even wearing Star Wars clothing. You may have seen some of the Star Wars stuff on my shelf behind me. I love those stories because it reflects a biblical principle that we are never not battling sin. In Romans chapter 7, the Apostle Paul, in fact, talks about how he, though he knows the truth, ends up doing things he doesn't want to do. And the things he desires to do, the good things that honor God, those are the things that sometimes he doesn't do. That battle within himself as a regenerate person, as a person who's being sanctified by God, that battle between good and evil in our hearts is talked about through all of Scripture. While it doesn't talk about the light side and the dark side, it does talk about putting to death sinful desires. If you were to look at Colossians chapter 3, the first half of that chapter could be describing elements of the dark side, just as the second half talks about elements of the light, and how we are to put off the one and put on the other. As believers and as parents talking about this with our children, we can use things like Star Wars and that battle between good and evil to talk about the battle that goes in our own hearts. And this is displayed here with Cal and his crew. When Cal looks at the characters that he interacts with on the dark side, he sees the danger of giving into the dark side. And he's worried because he sees his own inclination to doing the same things. Just as you and I know that even though we seek to follow after God, even though we know we are a new creation through Christ, we deal with issues of temptation of the world around us. More than that, Cal understands that if he gives into his darker impulses, he will forever have to be battling them because it gets easier every time. If you're talking to somebody about an issue of sin, especially a habitual sin, you know that the first time is not the easiest time. It's the times after that. Once we start giving in to sin, it becomes easier and easier. And that's the point we need to come before the cross and say, Lord, help me. Pray what Paul prays in Romans, that we become more like Jesus so that we can put off the old self and put on the new. Probably the most important part of Cal Kestis' story, and a key element in talking about our faith using Star Wars, is that Cal doesn't do this alone. He is afraid of giving in to his darker inclination. He does express his fear that his focus on a single goal could be at the detriment of his relationships, of the world around him, and even of his own soul, even if they don't use that language. What Cal has going for him, what Cal has as a help, is that he is surrounded by people who love him, care for him, and know him. In fact, there is a point when Cal expresses this fear to one of his compatriots, and they say, you don't need to worry about that, because if we see you going that way, we will pull you back. A cool feature in this game is that Cal actually spends several episodes of his journey with another person. You actually get to hear the dialogue between Cal and this other person. That interaction is an excellent addition to this series, because it's not just about Cal. It's not just about Cal and BD1. It's about Cal and his crew, how he interacts with them, how they help him see when he might be going just a little too far and pulls him back. Christians have these very same tools in our toolbox, and it's called the church. This is one of the reasons that the author of Hebrews says, don't avoid the gathering of the believers. It's through the church that we encourage one another to do good works. It's part of the area that we are sanctified. Paul, when writing to Timothy, his Padawan, if you will, a pastor now in Ephesus, that the scripture is useful for exhorting, encouraging, for calling to righteousness, even for correction. In Colossians chapter 3 again, we see Paul writing to the church in Colossae saying, as you gather, encourage one another, challenge one another, correct one another with hymns and with psalms and with scripture. We exist within a community. So many times throughout the New Testament, when we see the word you written, it's not you personally, but you as a group, because we are designed as people to live socially, and we are designed as a church to live corporately. Jedi Survivor is one of my top games for the last year, maybe for the top few years. I have enjoyed every minute playing it. It has a perfect balance between action and exploration and even puzzle solving that I haven't seen since perhaps Zelda Breath of the Wild. And in fact, there are areas where this one does it even better. You are constantly moved forward in a desire not just to see what's behind that hill, but to see what is the next element in Cal's story. The only caution I would give here is that while Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor are both Star Wars games and they take place in a science fiction universe, they are still swordplay games, and you are attacking other human-like creatures. Even though your enemies are mostly stormtroopers or robots, or there's a new group of bad guys that are still covered to head to toe in armor and a mask, they are still human-esque in the way they look. There is also some darker elements in this game because there is, as in all Star Wars, a battle between good and evil inside a person's very soul. So keep that in mind as you're letting younger gamers play this excellent game. This has been a review from This, That, and Theology. If you like the content you're seeing on our channel, don't forget to like and subscribe and share videos you may find particularly good. We also have full devotionals and reviews that go beyond our videos on our website, thisthatandtheology.com. You can head over there and take a look and see what we have there. Also, don't forget to leave a comment if there's something in the video that you found particularly impactful, or if there's something you'd like for us to address here on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day, and may the Force be with you.